The archetype of the alpha male has been repackaged for the modern era. It is no longer solely the blustery, domineering patriarch of old. A new, more insidious model has emerged, one fluent in the language of emotional intelligence, capable of wielding perceived weakness as a weapon. This strategy, calculated vulnerability, is not a genuine act of self-disclosure but a sophisticated social gambit. It involves the deliberate, controlled, and theatrical sharing of personal insecurities or past wounds, orchestrated not to foster mutual intimacy, but to elicit specific responses that bind, obligate, and ultimately control a partner. To understand its potency, one must first dissect the social mechanics it exploits, the human impulse toward empathy, the cultural weight placed on a man's vulnerability as a rare gift, and the powerful sunk cost fallacy of emotional investment. This is not a clumsy manipulation, it is a long-game strategy built on psychological principles. Phase 1, the fortress and its single, strategic crack. The entire mechanism depends on a stark contrast. Before vulnerability can be calculated, invulnerability must first be convincingly performed. Building the pedestal, the individual meticulously crafts an image of supreme competence, emotional stoicism, and unshakable resolve. He is the problem solver, the protector, the man whose internal world appears as ordered and impenetrable as his external achievements suggest. This persona serves a dual purpose: it attracts partners drawn to strength and stability, and, more crucially, it frames any subsequent emotional disclosure as a monumental event. The economics of scarcity: in this context, his vulnerability becomes a scarce commodity. When a man who appears to need nothing finally shares a weakness, it is perceived not as a commonplace human moment, but as a privileged revelation. As sociologist Dr. Breen Brown's research implies, vulnerability from a position of perceived strength carries disproportionate weight. It feels like an honor bestowed, creating an immediate sense of debt and intimacy in the recipient. The stage is now set for the gambit. Phase 2, the curated confession, weaponizing the personal narrative. The disclosure itself is never accidental or messy. It is a tactical release of information, designed to maximize impact and secure a specific outcome. Common, highly effective tropes include: the noble scar: after what happened with my ex, I just find it hard to trust. This framing is masterful. It does not present a current emotional limitation as a flaw to be worked on mutually, but as a historical injury that commands reverence. His emotional unavailability is transformed from a relational problem into a sacred wound. The implicit message to his partner is, your role is not to expect trust, but to tirelessly prove you are worthy of it, unlike those who came before. The problem is externalized, and the labor of fixing it is assigned to her. The martyr's burden: I'm the one everyone leans on, my family, my team. I never really get to show how much it weighs on me. Here, vulnerability is conflated with sacrifice. By confessing the strain of his own indispensability, he elicits profound sympathy while simultaneously elevating his status. He is not just strong, he is selflessly strong. This narrative brilliantly discourages his partner from adding to his burden with her own needs or complaints, as doing so would align her with the needy masses he already carries, rather than the supportive sanctuary he deserves. The crack in the armor, whispering, sometimes I'm terrified I'm not enough, after a public triumph. This is perhaps the most potent tactic. It creates an intoxicating intimacy shortcut. She is made to feel she is the sole witness to the hidden truth behind the triumphant facade, the real man only she understands. This forges a powerful, exclusive bond, but one based on her perception of his uniqueness, not on mutual recognition. Phase 3, the silent contract, from disclosure to control. The confession is merely the hook, the control is in the conditions that surround it. This is where empathy is captured and put to work. The bond of secrecy, the preface, I've never told anyone this, is non-negotiable. It performs two critical functions. First, it inflates the perceived value of the shared information. Second, and more importantly, it creates a conspiratorial alliance. She is now the keeper of a secret, morally complicit in maintaining his curated public image. To later challenge that image feels not just like a disagreement, but like a profound betrayal of this sacred trust. The inversion of the caretaking dynamic, her natural, empathetic response, to offer comfort, reassurance, and support, is the precise reaction the Gambit is designed to trigger. This reaction is then systematized. Over time, her role is quietly cemented as that of his emotional restorer, the safe harbor for his occasional, stormy vulnerability. Meanwhile, her own vulnerabilities, when shared, are often met with a swift return to his strong persona, offering solutions, minimizing the issue, or subtly refocusing the conversation back to the more substantial themes of his narrative. The emotional ledger becomes profoundly one-sided. The preemptive defense, this is the control mechanism's masterstroke. The disclosed past wound is transformed into a shield against present accountability. If she expresses a need, sets a boundary, or criticizes a behavior, he can invoke his vulnerability. See? This is why I keep my guard up. I try to open up, and I get attacked. Suddenly, her legitimate grievance is reframed as her failure, her insensitivity, her resemblance to past hurters. She is maneuvered into the position of the villain, effectively policing her own behavior to avoid re-traumatizing him. The calculated outcome, a prison of lowered bars and invested capital. The cycle, repeated, achieves its overarching goals with quiet efficiency. 1. It systematically lowers the bar for mutual partnership. His occasional, dramatic confession is framed as such an extraordinary act of trust that it comes to satisfy the relationship's entire requirement for emotional intimacy. Her need for consistent, reciprocal, day-to-day emotional presence seems mundane and demanding in comparison. She begins to feel grateful for the crumbs of his real self, forgetting she entered the relationship seeking a full meal of companionship. 2. It exploits the sunk cost fallacy of empathy. The more she invests, the nights spent reassuring him, the secrets kept, the parts of herself she minimizes to better perform as his sanctuary, the harder it becomes to walk away. To leave is not just to end a relationship, it is to render null all that emotional labor, to betray the wounded hero she has devoted herself to healing. Her own identity becomes entangled with the role he assigned her. Discerning the gambit from the gift. The distinction between calculated vulnerability and its authentic counterpart is found not in the content of the sharing, but in its structure, reciprocity, and consequence. Genuine vulnerability is inherently risky and uncontrolled. It involves sharing a feeling without a guaranteed, positive outcome. It is offered as an open hand, not a tactical move. It is reciprocal, creating space for the other person to be seen in return. Most tellingly, it leads to sustained change, deeper connection, changed behaviors, and increased accountability. Calculated vulnerability is a closed-loop performance. Its purpose is to extract a resource, sympathy, sex, loyalty, silence, and to consolidate power. It remains a monologue about his narrative, not an invitation into a dialogue about their dynamic. It stagnates, the same wounds are reperformed to elicit the same comforting responses, with no movement toward healing or greater equity. It is, in essence, emotional counterfeiting, producing the feeling of closeness to avoid the reality of it, which requires true mutability and surrender. In the final analysis, the practitioner of calculated vulnerability is not a partner seeking connection. He is a strategist seeking a managed outcome. He trades in counterfeit intimacy to purchase real estate in another person's empathy, building a prison where the walls are made of her own compassion and the bars are lowered expectations. He retains ultimate control by playing a part that convinces his partner she has finally been allowed behind the curtain, never realizing the performance is the curtain, and the man behind it remains firmly, and forever, on stage. So, where does this leave us? It's easy to watch this and feel a chill of recognition. Or perhaps a surge of cynicism. But the true purpose of this analysis isn't to make you distrustful of every moment of shared humanity. It's to make you discerning. The man lost in the performance of calculated vulnerability isn't just a villain. Often, he is a prisoner of his own archetype. He has mistaken control for connection, tactics for intimacy. He has been taught, perhaps, that to be truly known is to be truly vulnerable, to attack. And so he builds a labyrinth, calls it a heart, and then wonders why he is so alone at its center. His tragedy is that in his quest to never be manipulated, he has become the primary manipulator of his own emotional life. He gains a subject, but forfeits a partner. And for the person on the other side of this gambit, the one who gave their empathy in good faith, only to find it converted into a form of gentle, emotional currency, your task is not to harden. It is to clarify. Genuine intimacy is not a spectacle. It is not a perfectly timed soliloquy. It is a shared language that develops slowly, messily, and reciprocally. It shows up not just in the grand, dramatic confession, but in the daily, unglamorous willingness to say, I was wrong, to ask, how does that make you feel, and to sit with an answer that isn't about you. Look for the vulnerability that changes things. That leads to new understanding, adjusted behavior, and a deeper, more equitable partnership. The calculated kind only ever leads back to the same, carefully managed stage. So let this be an invitation to demand a reality more beautiful than any performance. To value the steady, unadorned trust that is built brick by brick, with mutual hands, over the intoxicating but hollow gift of a single, prefabricated stained glass window. Because beyond the fortress and the gambit, beyond the roles of alpha and healer, there is simply the courage of two people, choosing, day after day, to put down their armor, not as a strategy, but as a pact. And that is a story no performance can ever replicate. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe and turn on notifications for deep dives into the psychology of relationships, power dynamics, and social strategy. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you encountered this form of calculated vulnerability? How did you recognize it?